In the previous lesson, we have done local setup to work with Node.js. In this lesson, we will learn Express.js framework, which is used to create REST APIs. So to create a Node.js application, let's create a folder with the name Express Node.js Demo App. I already have the folder created. So let's open it in Visual Studio Code. As you can see, the folder is currently empty. Whenever creating any Node.js application, the first thing you should create is a package.json file. The package.json file contains a list of all the npm packages your application is using. So to create a package.json file, you can execute npm init command. It will ask you some questions before creating the file, for which you can just press enter key. But there is a better way. You can just add -y to the npm init command to say yes to all the questions and avoid answering the questions. As you can see, a new package.json file is created with some default properties like name, version, description, and so on. You can change the values of these properties if you want. Scripts will contain all the commands you can execute to work with the application. For author, you can mention your name here if you want. Now, let's create a new index.js file. As mentioned in the package.json file, main file is the index.js file. It's common to call it index.js or server.js. It does not matter what you call it. I will use index.js as the name, and inside this we will write our code. Now, to create an application using Express.js, we first need to install that package. To install it, you can execute npm install express command. If you want to find out the exact package name to install the package, you can just add the npm keyword and name of the package. And if you click on link for npmjs.com, you will see how to install and use this package. Now, the Express package is installed. If you see now, you can see a new package.lock.json file is created. This file contains exact versions of all the packages and their dependent packages installed. This file is automatically generated and also automatically updated when we install or uninstall any package. So you should never change this file manually. You can also see the version of the installed package. So version 4.18.2 is the latest version at the time of recording this video. If you want to install any other version, you can click on this version's link and select the version you want to install. But by default, npm install express installs the latest available version. If you want to install any specific version, let's say 4.18.0, then you can execute npm install express at 4.18.0 command. Or yarn add express at 4.18.0 if you're using yarn. If you want to explicitly specify to install the latest version, you can execute npm install express at latest. So this package.json file is very important to have, as it will list out all the packages you need for your application. One more thing you will notice is the auto-generated node_modules folder. This folder is automatically created when you install any npm package and will be updated when you update or remove any of the npm package. The size of this folder might go up to some MBs of GBs depending on the number of packages you installed. So this folder you should never push to GitHub. Also, you need to delete this folder if you're sharing the project code with someone else. But you always need the package.json file, using which you can regenerate that folder by executing just npm install command. This command will read all the dependencies mentioned and will install them so you can use it in your application. So node_modules folder contains platform-specific files, so you always need to execute npm install command before running your application. Now, as we have installed the Express.js package and we also have Node_modules folder created, we can start writing code in the index.js file. So to use Express npm package, we first need to import the package. As you might know, when we use ES6 syntax, we import it like this. Import Axios from Axios. This is ES6 way of importing. But now, we're working in Node.js, which is using CommonJS syntax. In CommonJS, we use require function to achieve that. So let's declare a const Axios to store the require function result. So the first line is ES6 or ES module syntax and second line is Node.js or CommonJS syntax. So we will use the second line syntax. But we don't need Axios right now, instead we will use Express package. Now, to create Express.js application, we can create a variable with name app and we will call the Express as a function. Now, on this app variable, we can call the listen method which will allow us to start the Express server. And for the listen method, we can pass the port number on which to start the server as the first argument. You can pass 3030, 5000, or any other port number. The second argument of listen is a callback function which will be executed once the server is started. You can either use normal function or arrow function for it. Here, we will just print a console message to indicate that server is started. Now, to run this file, we can execute node index.js command. You can see the server started message in the console. Now, let's access localhost on port 3030. Here, we're getting an error, cannot get /, because we have not written any code to specify what should be returned when we access the localhost :3030. To specify that, we can use get method on app object. So whenever we access any URL in the browser sends out HTTP GET request. If we access google.com, then also browser sends out GET request. That's the default request sent when we access anything. So now, if we write app.get for the /root, then it means we're accessing root of the application, which is localhost :3030. So if I add / at the end of the URL, it means the same thing. You will also see some code where instead of / it's empty string, which is also same as mentioning /. But using explicit / is always better. Now, the second argument is a function that will automatically receive request and response as the arguments. You will usually see it written in shorthand like REQ and RES, but you can also write it completely like request and response if you want. But you will rarely see written it completely, so we will stick to REQ and RES. Now, we want to return something when we access /URL, which we can send using the send method of the response object. We also have JSON method to send the JSON data. But it's common to use send method because it automatically detects what type of data to send based on the passed value. So let's say we're passing string to the send method. Now, to see the changes in the browser, we need to restart the server by rerunning node index.js command. Now, when we access the application again, our changes will be reflected. Now you can see the welcome to Express.js world message. So for the send method, instead of sending just a string, we can also send an HTML content like this. Now, again we need to restart the server. And now, if you refresh, you can see h1 element is displayed. If you inspect it, you can see it's an h1 element. So depending on what content you're sending, send method will automatically send that data back to the client, which is browser in our case. Now, if you want to send back JSON data, you can also use the JSON method of the response object. Now, you will see the JSON response in the browser. Looks like we forgot to restart the server. Now you can see the JSON data in the browser. But instead of JSON, let's use the send method so we don't need to change the method every time for different data types. Now, if we restart server again, we get the same result in the browser. If you see here, we're seeing the data in formatted way. So let's say we have added another nested property. You still see the JSON in formatted way. This is because I have installed the JSON Formatter Chrome extension. So if you search for JSON Formatter Chrome extension, you will see the extension which you can also install to see the data in formatted way. So this is the extension you can install. So this is how you can send any data to the browser using send method. One thing you might have noticed is that we always need to restart the server if we make any change in the code. This is not a good developer experience. So instead of manually restarting the server, you can use a npm package with name nodemon. This npm package, when used, automatically restarts the server when there is any change in the file, so you don't need to manually do that. As you can see, it's very popular npm package. So to install it, you can just execute npm install nodemon command. One thing you should know that nodemon is not used directly in the application, but it's just required to run the application. So it should not go under dependencies, instead it should go under dev dependencies. So whatever you're directly using in the code to be executed in the browser should go in dependencies, and the things which you're not using in the code will need to go in dev dependencies. In case of nodemon, we're not using it in the code and also not required when we deploy the application to hosting provider. It's only required on local machine to restart the server. So to install anything as a dev dependency, we need to add --save -dev flag to the npm install command. So this will add a new dev dependencies section in package.json file, as you can see here. Also, when we deploy the application to hosting provider, it will install only the packages mentioned in the dependencies section and not dev dependencies. Now, as nodemon is installed, we can create a new script with name start to use the nodemon. The name start is a special name, so if you have any script with that name, it will be automatically executed when we deploy the application. Now, for the start command, instead of node-index.js command, we need to use nodemon index.js command. You can have multiple scripts also. So in addition to start, we can also have test command. Now, to run the start script, we can execute npm run start command. Start is a special name, so you don't need to add run also. You can just execute npm start. You can see, it still works the same. So when using start and test name, you don't need to add run keyword. But if you have script with some other name, like test server or something else, then you need to add the run keyword like this. Let me remove those extra scripts now. Now, let's run the start script. This will start the application. Now, if I change anything in the index.js file, you can see that NodeMon automatically restarts the server. And if you refresh the page, you can see the updated change. So NodeMon is really useful during development to restart the server automatically. Now, regarding these request and response object, the request contains a lot of information. So if we just log the request object to the console, we can see what it prints. Now, when we access the /root, we will see the log in the console. One thing you should remember is that, whenever we use console.log, it does not logs in the browser console but instead in the Node terminal. As you can see, nothing is printed here. So as we're writing the code in server side using Node.js, we see it in the server console. As you can see, it contains a lot of information which you might not need. But you can access request.url, which tells the URL you used in the application, and also request.method, which will tell you whether you have used GET_request or POST_request or any other HTTP request method. Now, if we access the application, you will see the logs printed. As you can see, the URL is / which we're accessing and the method name is get. Now, let's say, I'm accessing /URL, then the /URL will give an error because we don't have any such root. But if we access /users, we get the response back. And in the console, you can see request.url is /users and the method is again get. There is also request.body. So whenever you send some data from the client to server in the body of the request, you get the data in request.body. Right now, we're not sending anything, so we will get undefined. So that's how you can define a GET request route using Express.js. Now, let's say we have an array of users with name and age properties. Then to send this array back to the client, you can just mention the user's array for the send method. And now, if I refresh the page, you can see the user's array displayed. So that's it about this lesson. In the next lesson, we will learn more about Express.js.